bardzo się cieszę, że udało nam się tutaj zgromadzić osoby, którym Getting Things Done pomogło w jakiś sposób, które doceniają wartość metody. Do tej pory pracowaliśmy z Wami głównie nad indywidualnymi kompetencjami. Często jednak pytaliście i pytacie, jak przenieść to dobre praktyki Getting Things Done na sposób, w jaki funkcjonuje zespół, czy na całą kulturę organizacyjną. Dlatego to, co dzisiaj chcielibyśmy Wam pokazać, to jak modele i najlepsze praktyki, które już znacie na poziomie indywidualnym, można zastosować w zespole, tak by pracował on efektywnie, ale nie kosztem poszczególnych członków zespołu. O tym, jak to można zrobić, opowie Wam za chwilkę twórca metody, mój mentor David Allen. Natomiast po wystąpieniu Davida jeden z adeptów GTD, Miłosz Garbarczuk, opowie nam również, jak w praktyce może wyglądać wdrożenie GTD w zespole. Hi, David. I'm really happy to see you again, especially since the Polish audience had the chance to learn directly from you about, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe. And since then, the world has changed and much has changed in our businesses as well. And today, we know how to use GTD for individuals, but we are very excited to learn how to make it work for teams. So, David, the virtual stage is all yours.
Thank you, Jakub. I'll wait till the slides come up. There we go. Getting things done with others. I'm going to assume most of you already are somewhat familiar with the Getting Things Done methodology. It will save a lot of time. I'm going to go over the idea of how does this affect working with other people? And so, the one way to start this, to think about what's new in the world these days that makes this so important. Well, there are several things, and I'm going to go over them very quickly. I could spend a whole day on each one. We have a global world. It's virtual. It's 24/7. Most people, actually most professionals, are actually more interested in working for projects, not for companies. That's a big change in teams. How frequently are things new? In your organizations, by the way, when have things changed? 2 years ago, or 2 days ago, or 2 hours ago? That's new. And again, it's a 24/7 world. Channel creep. How many different channels are you having to look at now? Slack, Evernote, Teams, Google Meet. How many things are you letting now into your world that you might need to make decisions about that might be important for you? And AI, and I say, etc. God knows where this is going to go, right? What else is new about that? Well, given all of that, what's going on is a huge increase in stress. Burnout, that's a little extreme, but the stress surveys, especially in Europe, have been significant, and they're not going down, they're going up. How many people are out of work now because of some stress-related thing? It's huge. So what's not new in the world? What's not new are the key elements of what we call healthy high performance. It's our version of saying mind like water. In other words, how do you get to a team where it's cool? And what's not new? Some basic stuff. If you have a very high performing team that's healthy right now, then you have control, you have clarity, you have focus, you have trust in your standards that people in the team, no matter where or who they are keeping the critical standards intact. Roles are clear. Is this yours or this mine? Oh, that's yours. Great. I'll wait to hear from you. And you can repeat the best practices when you have new members that are happening frequently, or when things change, which is happening frequently. So those are the standards that we say, okay, the GTD principles apply to all of those. And so, in the old days, they probably didn't work things out, but in the new days, I don't know, a whole lot of things are different. And that may be a little extreme, but even psychologically, people working together is not maybe as optimal as it could be. So in my many years of working with executives one-on-one, let me just point out the the complaints about executive productivity, twofold, the biggest things. One, too many meetings. They're jammed. They got no space. They got no room. Secondly, their email. They got too many. I don't know. The channel is like exploding for a whole lot of them. And there's so much that's embedded in all of that might affect their decisions and their productivity. So we need a strategy about all that. And I'm going to just repeat some things from the Getting Things Done methodology. How are things in your head office? Most people's head office is this, which is unfortunately not a very good head office. Your brain was not made for holding ideas. 4 is about it that it can hang on to before it starts to lose optimal ability to think. Your mind is for having ideas, not for holding them. But guess what? That's also true for your team. Your group is for having the ideas about the group, not hanging on to them. So, getting things done, that's a big methodology that over the last 45 years, I researched, implemented, and objectified. And ultimately, it came down to this. There are certain levels of things that you need to get done. They're not the same, but they should be very integrated. And they're all the commitments that you have. So think about from a team perspective that the team has all of these levels of commitments, implicitly or explicitly, in terms of what it's doing. So, first of all, what's the purpose of the team? What really matters to the team? You'd be surprised how many teams are not that clear about why they're a team. But you're a team because there's some reason you're a team. How clear are you about what that is? What would success look like if the team were highly successful? Very vague conversation for a lot of the teams. What are the things the team needs to accomplish over the next 12 months or 24 months in order to make the vision happen? What are the roles people have? Who's accountable for that? Is this yours or is this mine? Very unclear on many teams we work with. So even though they may be sort of functioning as a team, there's a huge improvement opportunity oftentimes in roles. And what are all the things you need to finish, over the next 10, 12, 14 months, projects you have as a team? And then what are the next steps that need to be happening on those projects and who's doing them? So these are the, basic GTD of getting things done horizons, but it's also very true for a team. And many teams, even though they may be doing all of these to some degree, have huge improvement opportunities about them. Now, that'd be nice if they all showed up like this. If you got a nice key thing in the morning, then the team or the team meeting could look at this menu. It doesn't. It shows up like this. So the problem is that you might be personally effective and productive and clear. The people you may be working with may be personally effective and productive and clear. But boy, as soon as you get together, that adds extreme complexity to how many things you need to manage. So in order to get really clear to that mind like water state, that complexity needs to be managed. And it shows up like this, but it often shows up like this. How many of you right now, while you're on this webinar, have stuff showing up in email or showing up, for your team, et cetera, that you're going to have to deal with? They often come in all kinds of forms for people personally or whatever, whether they're conscious or not, they're there. And so, there are high performing teams that work extremely well, for sure. Absolutely. But let's look at what are teams. They're not just the Formula One or the spacecrafts. There are all of these. Yes, their business projects are part of a team. And by the way, everybody you deal with personally is also a team. Your kids, your life partner, your friends, your commitments, your social work, your service work. All of those are teams. Now, it needs structure. You can't just be ad hoc about all of this. The basic structure is driven by what's the purpose of the team? Why are you even together? That's going to drive everything ultimately in terms of your decisions. But ultimately, you're going to need to get control. And the way you do that is the basic GTD, getting things done system. How do you take a situation and get clear about what it is and feel comfortable about it? Well, you need to capture what has your attention or the team's attention, right? How do you do that? Well, get your team together. The next meeting you have, say, hey guys, what's on our mind as a team right now? Is everything on cruise control? Is everything cool? If not, what's not? And that's what you need then to capture in some way. And so you need some sort of tool to capture that. You could do that, by the way, you know, when you think about all the different things that a team is having to deal with, you know, and that could be, oh, who knows, you know, a million things. But you need some way to capture all that. Very simple. You just a whiteboard in you know, in the room. Hey guys, what's got our attention? Write it down in some way. You know, I've done that I've spent many hours doing that with many teams, pretty sophisticated teams. And then you need to say, okay, given what you just wrote down, what do you need to do about any of those things? You know, what does that mean to you? And, you know, here's just a reminder of the basic algorithm about how do you make decisions about what things mean. You know, what is this thing you wrote down? You know, is it an actionable item? You know, yes or no? If no, what should you do with it? Well, you can trash it. You can say, well, let's just keep track of that, reference it. Or you could incubate it. Say, no, not time to move on that now. Let's park and let that. Let's deal with that later in the next meeting, maybe. If it is actionable, then that's a very important thing to say, okay, if yes, this is something we need to do something about, then what's the next thing that needs to get done? What's the next action? Which you, as you know, either do it if you can finish it in 2 minutes right then. What's the next thing to do? Let's just send that email. Great. Can we do that right now? Yeah, go send that. Maybe it needs to be delegated. Wait a minute. The next thing that needs to happen, you know, Jose, can you handle that? You know, Maria, can you handle that? Needs to get handed off. Or you need to say, wait a minute, we need to park that in some sort of reminder of an action that needs to get done. And then is there some project about this that we need to keep track of? Is there some larger outcome, you know, that we need to then make sure we have? By the way, if you don't do that, then you get what many people have in their mail, which is a lot of stuff you haven't made decisions about. You just stack it up, you know, as opposed to most to-do lists that mention things that have attention, but they haven't clarified what they're going to do about them and what the next step is. And again, that's the application of the getting things done methodology. But you would also need to apply that in a team context. By the way you apply that, it's the same principles, but it's different in where you do that and how you do that in a team context. Okay, and then of course, once you make those decisions, then you have to make decisions where do we park that reminder? Where do we park that? And that's where you need to have some sort of a team organization. You know, the actionable items. What are your team projects? Do you have that list somewhere? Where is it? And then of course you have action items that are specific. You have specific things that need to be on the calendar. Well, next Friday, the 10th of November or whatever, we need to make sure that gets handled or that gets dealt with. And next steps. Here's all the next things that need to happen about all of this. And ideally you have people assigned to each of those. And what are you then waiting for? If you've assigned actions and projects to people on the team, what is the team list of things that you're waiting on your team to then get to manage all that? You know, and by the way, what does the team need to trash? Ideas, you know, the biggest chapter in our new book on getting things done for teams is no. How does a team say, no, that's not ours. That's not something on purpose for us, and we need to not take that on. Reference. Okay, we need to just park that. And where does a team have a reference system? It could be software. It could be a lot of places. There's a lot of software places. We use, Note, Active Notes. We use Microsoft now. We've moved from Lotus Notes or IBM Notes into Microsoft. And so we use OneNote. OneNote has, all the reference we used to keep track of. And we've given people access to the various parts of that as need to be. Someday maybe, do you have a someday maybe list that the team reviews as often as they need to say, should we activate that now, or is that still on hold, or should we just dump that? And ultimately, the team needs to make sure it's stepping back and looking at what the team's about on some regular basis. How are we doing? What's up? What are the things we need to be taking a look at? And that's where you just need to lift up in your horizon and say, okay, guys, what's up on our horizon right now? Where are we in space and time, and what's coming toward us over the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 months, 1 year, 2 years? And what does our team as a team need to be thinking about, looking at, and making decisions about that might be affecting us, as opposed to waiting until those things are on our plate and then we're running around like rats and moving too fast to just latest and loudest. And then that's how you team makes decisions about what to do. You got to choose what to do out of all of that. So again, the life is for the team is showing up like this. The more that it gets all this together so that it has more of a clear agenda about what the team has, it's going to be a whole lot easier for the team to then navigate appropriately so it feels, better about it. So the team has all these best practices engaged. It's capturing what has their attention, clarifying appropriately what's actionable, what's not, what to do about the action items, has some sort of an organization system that people trust, is doing some sort of review and process that sees where it is, so that when it engages appropriately, that's cool. And also, if it's clear about these levels of what it's about as a team, why is it here? What's vision? What's the success look like? Are we clear about these things? The more it's clear about all that stuff, then the more easily you can then be ready for whatever's coming up to you, because it's coming up. New things are coming up, folks, quicker than you think. It may be in some of your emails right now that, oh my God, how are we going to handle that? Oh, geez. So are you dealing with it from a latest and loudest perspective? Are you dealing with it from okay, that's it, we're confident. It may not be fun, but it's the right thing to be doing right now. See, teams actually get things done more than even individuals. If you think about all the things that get done in your life, most of them are done in some sort of cooperation with other people. And so, become great technologies, in the archaic world, I think they maybe were able to get it together, have a right kind of a focus and clarity and reflection about what they were doing. By the way, I've coached a lot of teams in Amsterdam, and in our culture, that may look like a lot of teams right now, with their ayahuasca retreats or whatever, who knows. But in any case, that's a quick review. The new book that Ed and I, published was really about taking all of these principles and giving our, Ed and I have combined over 100 years, or 60, 80, 90 years anyway, of our consulting and training and coaching with teams with the Getting Things Done methodology. And what we did was took us 4 years to put all those together, taking all those principles and saying, well, how would that apply to a team? Not every team needs all of that. Many teams are somewhat working okay or doing fine. Some teams are out of control and they need a lot of this. Some teams just need to say, okay, could we do any of this better? And some of our best cases are teams that have actually taken the new book and everybody on the team has read it and then came together as a team and said, well, here's the piece that we could probably enhance so we could work better. So anyway, that's a very quick overview of a very lot of stuff. But Jakub, I'm going to hand it back over to you guys and say, okay, there's sort of my take on what all this stuff was all about. So up to you.
David, thank you so much for this inspiring presentation. I have a lot of questions, of course, and I'm sure that our audience does too. But before we jump to the Q&A, I would like to circle back to one thing that you've mentioned that really captured my attention, is that we, as teams or as a leaders of a team, we need to say no more often. Can you say more about this?
No.
Thanks.
No, a lot of teams take things on because they don't know everything they have. So once they have all the inventory of what their commitments are and what their purpose is, it makes it a lot easier to say, is this thing we've been asked to handle on purpose or not? And if not, you can be more political about it. Well, who needs to handle this better? We're not set up to do that. If we do, we're going to then go off purpose to the more critical things we need to handle. So there's a lot of ways to then deal with that, but we've seen a lot of teams just start to build overwhelm and more stress needed because they're just taking on a lot more things than the team can handle.
Do you think it's a role of a team leader to protect the team?
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah. The team leader needs to make a decision about it, but anybody on the team could say, hold on. Wait a minute. Is that on purpose for us? Anybody on the team, hopefully you have a collaborative enough team with enough permission and safety for people to talk.
Yeah, what I also noticed when I was talking with other participants, that sometimes there is this unspoken rule, unwritten rule, that we need to be in service, helpful to others, and whenever someone asks us for something, we should deliver because we are team players, right? But what you're saying is that's not necessarily our best option. Correct?
Well, think about your best football team. Do you think they take on every single strategy that anybody gives them as a team that they ought to play? Or do you think they need to make critical decisions about what's going to happen on Saturday or Sunday?
Yeah.
What's the difference? Right? It doesn't mean that there's not good ideas that they may have, that other people may have that could maybe integrate, but they have to be able to say, no, we're not going to change our strategy or our plan based upon that new input or new idea, unless that's a better idea than what we were currently doing. But that just takes intelligence, takes thinking.
Okay. So thank you once again for your presentation. And we will have a Q&A session right after than our next segment. So let me switch to Polish right now to introduce another guest. Miłosz, cześć, czy możesz do nas dołączyć? Mam nadzieję, że tak. W międzyczasie, zanim Miłosz tutaj się włączy, to powiem, że obecnie jestem dyrektorem zakładu Guardian Częstochowa, a wcześniej pracował w grupie Hager i to właśnie tam można powiedzieć, że zebrał drużynę, z którą dokonał prawdziwego Mission Impossible. Miłosz, proszę powiedz, jakie wyzwanie przed wami stanęło? Jakie wyzwanie mieliście?
Witam wszystkich. No w kilku słowach, jakie stało wyzwanie, tak żebyście mogli poczuć, ubrać się w te buty, w których ja w tamtym okresie byłem. Jest zielona łąka, na której pasły się zające, rosły drzewa i płynęła rzeczka. I zadanie, jakie zostało postawione najpierw przede mną, to w tym miejscu, gdzie jest ta zielona łąka, ma być najnowocześniejszy zakład w całej grupie, a ten zakład ma świecić nie tylko przykładem pod kątem architektury, wykonania, ale też warunków pracy, całego flow, w jaki on ma być zaprojektowany. Ma być to połączone z kilkunastoma transferami produkcyjnymi, bądź też uruchamianiami nowej linii w ramach całej grupy. Mówimy o budżecie kilkudziesięciu milionów euro tylko na sam zakład, plus kolejne kilkadziesiąt, jeżeli chodzi o transfery produkcyjne, gdzie ja wcześniej takich realizacji nie robiłem nigdy w życiu. To było postawione przede mną, pierwszy raz miałem to przed oczami, więc wyzwanie było przeogromne i wiedziałem, że poradzić sobie, nie mając do tego żadnych takich metod wspierających, jak sobie radzić z tak dużymi przedsięwzięciami, byłoby to ekstremalnie trudno. Do tego zespół, który zbudowałem, to były osoby, które nigdy takich inwestycji nie prowadziły. Więc mówimy tu o grupie takim korowym 6-7 osób, które nigdy wcześniej nie prowadziły tego typu inwestycji, które w 90% to były osoby w ogóle spoza grupy Hager zatrudnione specjalnie pod tą inwestycję, później miały mieć inne role w ramach organizacji. Ja jako osoba, która też była świeża, całkowicie z innej organizacji, bo przyjąłem się do Hagera w ramach, żeby podjąć się takiego wyzwania, o którym mówię. Więc to było to tło. Mission Impossible, tak jak powiedziałeś na samym początku.
Okej. No to w takim razie powiedz proszę, jak się do tego zabrałeś? Jak tutaj podszedłeś do tego tematu?
Ja może powiem, w którym miejscu GTD nam bardzo pomogło, bo samą metodykę zarządzania tak dużym projektem też wybraliśmy, to była dedykowana metodologia Critical Chain Project Management, ale to jest metodologia, która mówi o pewnych założeniach, jak sobie realizować zadania, które muszą być zrobione na czas, bądź takie duże inwestycje. To, czego metodologia zarządzania projektami nam nie dawała, to jak współpracować w zespole, jak się komunikować pomiędzy sobą, czego nam jeszcze ta metodyka nie dawała, jak sobie radzić z tematami, takimi zadaniami, które są zadaniami na pół dnia, na 1 dzień, czasami na 2 dni, bo w projekcie, który trwa ponad 12 miesięcy, ciężko rozpisać każde zadanie, nawet takie, które trwa na pół dnia, byłoby to kompletnie niezarządzalne. I mając pierwsze symptomy, że w zespole pojawia się konflikt poprzez jakby niezrozumienie bądź niezrozumienia ilości tematów, które na nas wpływają, tych codziennych i nieradzenie sobie z nimi, jak sobie poradzić, jak sobie poustalać priorytety, mówię, muszę coś z tym zrobić. Słyszałem wtedy, ale to było na bazie jednej rozmowy godzinnej, dostałem informację, czym jest Getting Things Done, jak Getting Things Done może pomóc. Nie znając innych sprawdzonych metod, mówię, no to jednak spróbuję tej metody i zobaczymy, czy zespół tą metodę przyjmie, czy ja sam tej metody się nauczę. Byliśmy w takim miejscu, ja bym powiedział tak, że tonący chwyta się wszystkiego, co może, ale jednak GTD nie okazało się tą brzytwą, tylko okazało się faktycznie kołem ratunkowym. Więc od razu był kontakt GTD Polska, ustalenie warsztatów z całym zespołem i co było kluczem, przeszkolenie nie tylko jednej osoby, ale przeszkolenie wszystkich członków zespołu, jeżeli chodzi o Getting Things Done i jak pracować w ramach Getting Things Done. I równocześnie to był w takim etapie kilku sesji, które mieliśmy z przerwą na pracę własną. Pracowaliśmy nad metodyką rozwiązania, jak użyć Getting Things Done, jeżeli chodzi o zespół. Nie było wtedy jeszcze książki wydanej, nie mogliśmy skorzystać z tych wskazówek, które one były, więc bazowaliśmy na tym, co wypracowaliśmy wspólnie z zespołem, ale też przy pomocy i wskazówkach Kuba twoich. Więc Getting Things Done uratowało nam projekt. Bez Getting Things Done ten projekt by nie odniósł takiego sukcesu, jaki on odniósł, bo co chciałem powiedzieć, jak zakończył się...
Przepraszam, wejdę ci w słowo, bo tak chciałbym trochę uchylić rąbka tajemnicy, tak? I powiedzieć, zanim przejdziemy do tego, grand finale, do tego, jaki był rezultat całego wyzwania, to powiedz proszę, czy masz jakieś takie przykłady, które ci przychodzą do głowy dotyczące tego, jak to Getting Things Done zaaplikowaliście, w których miejscach to was wsparło, tak? Nie wiem, czy może chodzić jakiś case po głowie, który gdzieś tam z przeszłości pokazuje, jak GTD się tutaj wpisało w wasze potrzeby.
To ja może powiem tak, bo sam projekt był zarządzany na kilku poziomach, jeżeli chodzi o kwestie szczegółowości. Takim poziomem były zadania bądź takie kroki milowe, które były wpisane w system informatyczny, ale później przechodziliśmy do takich zadań, które przykładowo trwały tydzień, 2, mówimy o takim okresie czasu, ale nie wiedzieliśmy, jak sobie radzić z tym zadaniem, co na tablicy kanbanowej było jako jedna kartka, bo używaliśmy tablicy kanban, jak to później rozbić na to, co ja mam zrobić jako następne działanie. Więc ta osoba, która później brała sobie tą kartkę z tablicy kanban, że tym tematem się zajmuje, to zaczynała sobie rozpisywać ten projekt jako projekt w rozumieniu Getting Things Done, zadając bardzo proste pytanie: what is the next action? Czasem to było zadzwoń, a jeżeli nie wiesz, co masz zrobić, to zadzwoń do kogoś, kto może wiedzieć, kto może ci pomóc, a jeżeli nie wiesz, do kogo masz zadzwonić, to jest tutaj kierownik projektu, to zapytaj jego. Nie wiem, jaki mam zrobić kolejny krok, bo ja nawet nie wiem, do kogo mam zadzwonić. Więc to są te takie niuanse z Getting Things Done, czyli jeżeli ja nie wiem, jaka jest następna akcja, to nie szukajmy, nie analizujmy już, a co kolejnego będzie, a jakie będę miał trudności przede mną, tylko skupmy się na tym najbliższym zadaniu i szukajmy pomocy, eskalujmy, prośmy o pomoc, jak do tego następnego działania podejść, bo to już nas przybliża do celu. Więc to była taka, powiedziałbym, taki kamień milowy, taki krok przełomowy w zrozumieniu, że nie szukajmy sobie czarnego scenariusza, że to mi się nie uda, tylko spójrzmy, co ja mogę zrobić jako następne zadanie. Plus ta komunikacja, czyli jeżeli my już mieliśmy zrozumienie, czym są projekty w Getting Things Done, to codziennie mieliśmy spotkania przy tablicy, odpowiadając sobie na pytania: wczoraj, to co wczoraj udało się osiągnąć, tak? To jakie działania dzisiaj przed tobą? Jaka jest kolejna akcja? To pytanie, jakie jest kolejne zadanie, ono weszło w rytm zespołu. Ja powiem, że do dnia dzisiejszego to jest podstawowe pytanie, które zadaję na spotkaniach i to na każdym szczeblu zarządzania. Jeżeli spotkanie się kończy i nie ma ustaleń, to ja pytam się, to jakie jest kolejne działanie? Kto to zamierza, gdzie ja zrobić? Kolejne działanie, tak? Kolejne działanie może być tak, że przykładowo Maciek zrobi minutes of the meeting i wyśle. To już jest. Więc plus takie proste tematy, założenia Getting Things Done. Jeżeli możesz coś zrobić poniżej 2 minut, weź i zrób to. Nie pisz maila, nie eskaluj, nie rób z tego notatek, weź to zrób, bo możesz to bardzo szybko zrobić. No i też śledzenie, ile działań realizujemy równolegle danego członka zespołu, tak żeby też nawet mając Getting Things Done, jeżeli ta ilość jest zbyt duża, no to może pojawić się też wypalenie.
Super, dzięki. A powiedz proszę w takim razie, no dobrze, jak to wszystko się skończyło? Zaczęło się od łąki, a jak się skończyło?
Zaczęło się od łąki i od tego, że na początku projektu byłem sam. Jak się skończyło? No, najlepszym zespołem projektowym, z jakim miałem okazję pracować w swoim życiu. Ja powiem tak, że jak rozbieraliśmy baraki, to wszyscy płakaliśmy. Ale to nie dlatego, że już w końcu już tego baraku nie będzie, a dlatego, że już nie będzie naszego zespołu, bo każdy z nas pójdzie swoją ścieżką, więc to był taki dla mnie wyznacznik osobisty, jeżeli chodzi o zespół projektowy, a takie mierniki, takie twarde, to projekt zakończył się przed czasem, myśmy zwiększyli zakres projektu i nie przekroczyliśmy budżetu. To w przypadku projektów infrastrukturalnych tak ogromnych i transferowych, no to jest 1 na 1000 taki przypadek się zdarza. Oprócz tego ten sposób, w jaki my pracowaliśmy, czyli użycie łańcucha krytycznego, ale z dużym naciskiem na używanie codziennie Getting Things Done, to pozwoliło nam zdobyć nagrodę nagrodę Projekt Roku. W kategorii infrastruktura jest takie międzynarodowe stowarzyszenie bardzo znane, International Project Management Association. Pierwszy raz zrobiliśmy zgłoszenie, przyjechali audytorzy, byli kilka dni, w sumie oni nie mogli uwierzyć, jak byśmy prowadzili ten projekt, gdzie nie było terminów na poszczególne zadania. Ale ta współpraca, to zrozumienie, to what is the next action, patrzenie, co jest faktycznie ważne, to nam pozwoliło zrobić projekt przed czasem, nie dając terminów na poszczególne zadania. I jak powiem tak kolokwialnie, skosiliśmy nagrodę roku, gdzie mieliśmy w konkurencyjnych projektach to no, takie tuzy Tauron, JSW i no, byli bez szans z nami w sposób, w jaki my ten projekt zrealizowaliśmy. Także Getting
Super.
Things Done pomogło mi zawodowo, pomogło zespołowi zawodowo, pomogło mi osobiście. Ja do dziś jestem wielkim fanem Getting Things Done. Jak David mówił o inboxie mailowym, w tej chwili w moim inboxie jest 1 mail.
Czyli jesteś wyznawcą kościoła Inbox Zero, nie?
Jestem wyznawcą. Bywały momenty, gdzie z różnych przyczyn, nie wiem, przez tydzień, 2 mój Getting Things Done, czyli mój proces nie przebiegał tak, jak wiem, powinien przebiegać. Od razu czułem, że zaczyna mi czegoś brakować, zaczynam gdzieś gubić tematy, zaczynają mi ludzie z organizacji przypominać o czym ja doskonale powinienem wiedzieć, więc bardzo szybkie przegrupowanie, ustalenie priorytetów, powrót do Getting Things Done i trzymanie się takich, no powiedziałbym, żelaznych zasad.
Super. Miłosz, bardzo Ci dziękuję za podzielenie się swoimi doświadczeniami z GTD. Domyślam się, że wielu z Was tu słuchających nas w tym momencie tej naszej dyskusji ma pewien niedosyt, więc już myślę, że teraz możemy zdradzić, mimo że planujemy w ciągu najbliższych tygodni takie dłuższe spotkanie, podczas którego będziecie mogli nam zadać pytania, czy też wziąć udział w dyskusji. Także coś takiego będzie, stay tuned, będą informacje na ten temat z naszej strony.
Konkretne przykłady, pokazanie jak można użyć Getting Things Done w dużych organizacjach, współpracy z ludźmi, w projektach mniejszych, większych i w takiej efektywności osobistej.
Tak, dokładnie. Także mam nadzieję, że Was chociaż troszkę zaintrygowaliśmy tutaj. A teraz wrócimy do pytań do Davida, także dzięki wielkie, Miłosz.
Dzięki.
I widzę, że mamy ich całkiem sporo. Kilka się tutaj wyświetla, już zadawaliście pytania, więc zacznijmy Q&A session. So, David, I have some questions for you from our audience. The first one is that GTD seems to emphasize the individual system, but the team's success requires shared effort. What practices or tools do you recommend to prevent personal GTD workflows from becoming silos for the rest of the team?
It's a great question. Well, personal silos need to be personal. There's no reason in somebody's personal system that you need to share what's in your personal system with the team, unless what you're tracking in your personal system, things that have to do that are relevant to the team that you may need to then bring to whatever your team engagement is. So for instance, if I'm personally keeping track of things I need to bring up at the next team meeting, that's in my system. But the team meeting is when I bring my agenda up from my system that then engages the team appropriately. Then when I walk away from that, what's mine, what's theirs, and then how do I manage that on the team? So there's a very dynamic interplay between high performance personal productivity and the team productivity. That's a simple answer, and sometimes that's complex how that works, but no, the team, what you do as a person is very different than what you do as a team. That's why Ed and I wrote the book and spent a lot of years thinking about all this, because individuals could be very high performance themselves, but once they walk back into a team, that could just blow the heck out of, their own stress or their own relaxation, because the team is dysfunctional. So a functional team needs to require that the individuals on the team are managing their own stuff. It's in a sense that's simple, but that could be quite subtle.
Okay. Another question that I see here is, if you feel that tasks are piling up again and you are losing control, how can you regain your peace of mind and control?
Well, it's back to the 5 steps. First of all, capture what has your attention. And most people, that's a big habit to change. You think because you have it in your mind, you think you're going to deal with it. No, you have to get it out of your mind and then think about what you need to then do about it against all the other stuff you've got. And that's just the basic GTD methodology. So that, there's no simpler answer than what that is. You capture it, you get it off your mind, you get it out in front of you, decide what you're going to do about it, reflect on that against all the other commitments you have, to then make trusted decisions. Yeah. Can't give you a simpler answer than that.
Another one, it might not be the question, but it's more like a comment I see. The challenge is for the individual with so many channels and tools to funnel all the things into one inbox. With teams and the channels and tools, that is multiplying.
Good question.
Do you have any comment?
Yeah, good question. And then my basic is good luck. I know if you're letting them come in, first of all, do you need to let them all come in? Do you need all those channels? Maybe you do. Maybe the people you're engaging with say, well, we have to use Slack, or we have to use Microsoft Team, or we have to use whatever. You have to decide your commitments about the people you're engaging with, and then which channel everybody's using. We had one client I think in Scandinavia somewhere that spent a year deciding what are all the different channels we're using as a team, as a company, and which channel needs what kind of information. What things do you need a phone call with? What things do you need a one-on-one face-to-face with? What kind of things can you manage in our internal communication system? What kind of things can you manage through email? And they spend a lot of times getting discreet about that. That's not an easy task. And especially getting the team to then agree, yes, that's our protocol for how we're using these channels. That's not a simple task, but I checked with them, a year or two after they implemented this. They said, still going, it changed the culture. So it's possible, but it's not easy, but that's going to be required.
Okay. So another one is a request. David, could you share with us one personal achievement with using GTD method and one success with implementing GTD for the team from your own experience?
When I first experienced some of the key initial pieces of GTD, what became GTD many years later, was from a mentor of mine who had me empty everything out of my head and decide next actions about it. That was tremendous for me. Personally, I was not out of control. I was not crazy, but I said, okay, well, let me see what this guy's doing and see what happens. I did that and I went, oh my God, I'm suddenly so much clearer, so much more in control that I've used it ever since. That was 1982. How many years ago was that? 43 years ago.
I wasn't even born yet.
And I haven't stopped using it personally. And then everybody I started to engage them with this methodology because I used it myself, required them to use it if I was going to engage with them, if we had any kind of agreements about working together. And so that's been the name of how we've worked together and how I've worked together on my team. So there's no one specific event. It's just been an ongoing application of these methodologies as I built my career and I built the world I'm in right now. We still do. So and by the way, I'll be 80 years old end of December, and I still have to do all of this. And our team still has to do all of this in order to stay really clear, so that we can be as clear as we need to be, so that our team and our engagement, are at a much higher level than, did you handle this? Did I handle? Come on, that's so elementary. So it's just an ongoing process. No one big thing. It was everything that created my life and created the success I've had.
Okay, so the next question is very specific. What to do when the team spends all the time in meetings?
Oh, well, cancel all the meetings. Just
easier said than done.
And then reset the ones and agree to go to the ones that you think are mission relevant. If you need all those meetings to achieve the purpose of the team, You need all those meetings. That's your job. That's what you do. Come on, a football team has to get together regularly to make sure that it's going to be together on strategies and how to then play the game on Saturday. Right? So you need whatever meetings you need, and meetings are a great place to get a lot of good stuff done and a lot of good thinking done and a lot of good clarity about strategy and focus and priorities. But the ones that you don't need, boy, we had one company we worked with, the CEO ultimately, once he kind of got GTD, he then said, look, if you're invited to a meeting and the purpose of the meeting is not clear, the role you're supposed to have in that meeting is not clear, you don't gotta go. Change the culture. Just a simple things like that. Because most meetings, their purpose is not clear. They're not managed very well. People leave the meeting still unclear about what they decided, who's going to do what. They have to have another meeting. So bad meetings create more meetings that create bad emails, that create more bad emails, that create more bad meetings. That's a downward spiral. And there's no end to that until somebody just says, stop. Why am I going to this meeting? What's its purpose? And how relevant is that to what's important to me and to our team? And start to make some hard decisions about that. I'm not saying that's easy, especially if you have a culture that just says we have to agree to every meeting. Like, why?
Yeah, it's easier said than done, probably for some of us. Another question or comment is that you've always emphasized GTD is about a human process, the capture, clarify, organize, reflect, and engage, not the tools. Given that, do you see AI as a game changer that can finally create a digital trusted system that truly partners with us in the process, or will the core bottleneck always remain human?
A big no with a little bit of a yes. The big no is, look, come on, all of these are still human decisions about what's important to you and what's not. You're still going to have to curate everything that shows up in AI, even if you're using ChatGPT. I do it. I use it regularly. I use it every day. Okay. Give me some more data about this person, about this context, or about this situation. That's great. It's decision support. That's always been there. You could Google search, you could do all kinds of things that would just help, that would help you make better decisions, but it's not going to make the decisions for you. At some point, it might. You might get to the point where you say, okay, here's the email that needs to be sent, and it decides to send that email based upon its decision about it. I would never let it do that. So I think people who are smart, intelligent, sensitive, or whatever are never going to let AI take the place of their intelligence in terms of making good decisions about what to do or what not to do. So that's the yes is, yeah, great decision support, sped up everything about that. Gonna make it a lot easier, but it's not going to decide what to buy your mom for her birthday, unless you let it. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Don't have a mom now, but what it's going to do is give you a lot of good data. Well, your mom likes to color pink. She likes flowers. And by the way, 2 years ago, here's what you sent her. The last 2 years, here's what you've been sending her. And here are 5 sources that you might want to go to send her another one of those bouquets. Yeah, that's what AI is doing right now. So yeah, that's great in decision support, which is sped up exponentially. So yeah, in that regard, it's great, but it's not going to replace the getting things done process that people individually have to still apply.
Yeah. We still have time for, I think, 1 or 2 more questions. So let's go with this one. From the team member's view, how do you stop GTD from just turning a leader into a delegation machine who just pushes all responsibility down to the team?
Well, are they keeping what they should be keeping? If not, that's great. They should get rid of everything they could. I mean, we wrote in the book, and what's true is you should not do anything anybody else can do. You should only be doing what only you can do. So, if a team leader doesn't take that on, sure, they just give all kinds of stuff away just because of their political status or whatever they would want to do, but that's not going to be very effective. They need to be, then what they're not doing is what they should be doing, but only they could be doing. Why are they even in that role? They wouldn't be in that role if for some reason they were good at something. And that's why they were even put in that role.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that they should be doing that's unique to their position in that role that nobody else can do or should be doing because they do it better?
Yeah. And I guess the last one is, how should you act when a lot of last-minute variables appear and start affecting everything, and how can you prevent a domino effect?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's just the nature of what we all deal with all the time, especially these days, with all the new inputs that are coming up. As again, back to my slides where I said, look, what's new is how virtual it is, how 24/7 the world is, how frequently things are new, and channel creep. All that's creating all of those variables that are coming at us all the time. So you just need to get better at your decision making about it and feeling comfortable about it. Maybe you need to just, reduce your commitments.
Mm-hmm.
Stop. Say, wait a minute, this is not the job I intended to do, or they're asking me to do stuff, and if all of that is as mission critical as everything else, you're understaffed. So sometimes it's just, wait a minute, do I need more resources? Because if I'm letting things go and not doing stuff that's mission critical, that's mission critical. That's a mission critical decision. And sometimes you have to make a hard decision called, no, that's not mine, but that needs to get done. How can I hand that off? Or how can we rearrange ourselves or somehow reconfigure so we get the resources reallocated or new resources added in, or get rid of some old stuff that we don't need because it's out of date. So we have more bandwidth to deal with whatever the new and more mission critical stuff is. These are not simple decisions. This is strategy. This is what the thinking is that's required on a team. So you can't get rid of thinking. I'm sorry, that'd be nice, but it ain't gonna happen. Good luck.
Yeah, maybe that's the reason that's the reason why we are here, in order. Yeah.
And by the way, everybody, I have to tell all of you guys that Jakub is one of my favorite people in my network of GTDers. I have to say, Jakub, over all these years, you've been one of the smartest, brightest, most challenging, and in a positive way, respectful people about this methodology and its implementation. So for all of you, if any of you need my endorsement, Jakub has it. He's the best. So, and you've had me into Poland several times, and it's been a delight, to be able to do that and see what you're doing to spread this methodology, which is so important for such a great country like Poland.
Thank you for the kind words. Let me switch to Polish. Dziękuję Wam bardzo za pytania. To było ostatnie pytanie, na które mieliśmy dzisiaj przestrzeń. Świat często dosyć szybko się zmienia, co zresztą widać było w tych pytaniach, które zadawaliście. Technologie się zmieniają, AI się pojawia. Jak to mówi David, the speed of change is speeding up. Liczymy, że udało nam się dzisiaj pokazać, że metoda Getting Things Done może wciąż Was wspierać w nowych kontekstach, w nowych sytuacjach, i mamy też nadzieję, że zainspirowaliśmy Was do rozmowy o efektywności Waszych zespołów i jak możecie wykorzystać GTD tak, by przenieść ją po prostu na wyższy poziom. Jeśli potrzebujecie naszej pomocy, to oczywiście jesteśmy, a tymczasem życzę Wam miłego popołudnia. Thank you, David. Thank you, Miłosz. Thank you all.